Dr. Tetsuya Tanaka, thank you very much for coming to our studio today.
Yeah.
And I understand you were stationed in the Kyrgyz Republic in Central Asia from 1993 to the end of 1995, and you had many responsibilities. For example, in the first year, you were assigned as top advisor to the Kyrgyz Central Bank by the International Monetary Fund to give counsel on how to establish the banking system and the government's financial policy. Now, could you tell us what problems already existed when you first went there?
In the first half of my stay in the Kyrgyz Republic, I served as a general advisor to the central bank, sponsored by the Bank of Japan and IMF, as you say. In the latter half, I was the first president of the Japan-Kyrgyz Center, the first establishment of this kind in Central Asia. All through this period, I also served as an economic advisor to the President Akayev, while at the same time teaching as a professor of monetary and finance at the Management Academy, which is only the postgraduate school in Kyrgyzstan. I still continue this advisory role even after I came back to Japan, Tokyo. I've been chosen the first honorary citizen as a foreigner.
Is that so?
Yeah. In the regime of the former Soviet Union, there was no financial system in a real sense. State bank were no more than an agency for distributing budgetary funds. And a modern system of money and finance is an indispensable infrastructure in the market-oriented economy. And the establishment of the system had been urgently required. So I advised, especially on the following 4 points to improve the financial system. First is the introduction of means of policy implementation and what is essential to the central bank. Second is fostering of the establishment of plural commercial banks with good performance and disposition of debt of former state banks. And the third is the establishment and computerization of the interbank settlement system. And fourth is promotion of smooth issuance and circulation of independent national currency, SOM. The currency name is SOM, and which has been initiated before my arrival in the case. And as a result, several policy means such as credit auction, hard currency auction, and reserve deposit system were introduced. And also, for instance, Central Banking Act, Commercial Banking Act, and related legislation were enacted. And about 20 commercial banks started their activity, and state banks, Agroprom Bank. Agroprom, it means an agricultural bank, with about a loan of 80% of assets were closed. However, there remains a problem that the above-mentioned system is not fully performing because of an inadequate accumulation of domestic capital. Therefore, how to secure the foreign capital, including ODA funds, is the most urgent issue in the year to come. But the functioning of long-term finance to supply capital equipment investment funds to the industrial sector is to a large extent fragile, weak. I mean, it's very weak.
So you're saying that none of these necessary infrastructure for a market economy was not there when you first went there.
That's right.
And so you gave counsel about just about anything for the economic management of the country as advisors to the president of Kyrgyz. And unlike some other Central Asian countries, Kyrgyz is lacking in energy sources, such as petroleum and natural gas. From this standpoint, what kind of strategy did you map out for the country's economic development?
So, the Kyrgyz Republic is the most eager country in the CS countries to shift to market-oriented economy.
Among the 5 nations?
Yes, among 5 nations, yes. And a strong leadership President Akayev. And however, as you pointed, Kyrgyz Republic is not endowed with energy resources as compared with other countries surrounding Caspian Sea, and which comes out a big constraint to the economic management. In fostering the manufacturing industries, therefore, it is essential to minimize the dependence on oil and gas, and promote, vice versa, to promote full use of hydroelectric and carbon, it means coal energy, and which are more abundantly available within this country.
So they do have coal mines?
Yes, they have. On the side of trade and the balance of payments, it is desirable to orthodoxically give the first priority to fostering import substitution industry, as you know, such as food processing, textile industry, and other consumer good industries. And while simultaneously fostering export-oriented industries. So therefore, I recommend the Kyrgyz government and the president that it is necessary to introduce private foreign capital to reinforce their scarce domestic industrial fund, and to inject that fund intensively in the strategic industries. And these recommendations have steadily been put into practice. But however, it is regrettable that thus far the inflow of foreign capital to manufacturing has been lagged, and the foreign exchange rate of some tend to appreciate, reflecting the recommendation of the IMF. Appreciate, it means appreciate against the neighboring currency while stabilizing against the dollar. And that current account deficit has not improved as the import have increased, reflecting the liberalization of import duty, import tax, import duty, and other factors. International institutions, including the IMF, have demanded the Kyrgyz government to improve its economic management by a rapid privatization of a former state corporation business, and stabilization of a foreign exchange rate, and fiscal and monetary tightening to stabilize the price, so to speak, shock therapy, and fostering a direct financing market. I think it would be desirable to slow down the pace of these reforms, since the market and its participants are still immature.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about the bilateral relationship between Japan and Kyrgyz. And like you mentioned earlier in the interview, ODA is the most imminent measure needed for the country. And Japan is the biggest donor of official development assistance to the Central Asian country. Could you tell us how the aid money is being used? In what field?
The IMF and the World Bank began to make loans to Kyrgyz Republic soon after its independence from the former Soviet Union, and because Kyrgyz was quite eager to change itself to the market-oriented economy, and it is politically more democratized than the neighboring country. And Japan also extends the ODA fund to Kyrgyz in the first place among the CIS countries, for the same reasons with the IMF, as the IMF told. And also because assistance in a rather small country like Kyrgyz, it's a very small country, assistance was sought to achieve higher economic effectiveness. Now Japan extends the largest amount of aid among the major donor countries. And Japan's ODA is mainly targeted to improvement of social infrastructure and medical care. This includes renovation and modernization of Manas International Airport in Bishkek. You know, the name Manas is the hero's name in the old time of Kyrgyz, Manas Airport. And the repair of the highway between capital Bishkek. This is capital. Bishkek is located in the northern part, and Osh city. Osh city is located in the southern part, the second largest city. And the construction of the children's hospital of the largest scale in the Central Asia And aside from the first extended loan, 9.6 billion yen in 1993 to collect the balance of payment gaps. The people of Kyrgyz highly appreciate the early implementation of Japan ODA and concentration of its target on the infrastructure indispensable for Kyrgyz, and strongly hope it be further expanded to the establishment of direct airline between Kyrgyz and Japan, as well as private direct investment in manufacturing, especially in small and medium-sized company, medium-sized enterprise. Yeah.
And President Akayev has been taking a really strong leadership in the country.
That's right.
And he advocates what he calls look east policy, and setting Japan's economic success as an example for the Central Asian countries to follow. And I'm not sure if we can still call it a success with this lingering economic slump. But nonetheless, it's understandable that Kyrgyz takes Japan as a model because, like you said, both countries are poor in natural resources. Now, Dr. Tanaka, please explain the focal points of President Akayev's look east policy.
Yeah. It's a very famous story about this. President Akayev of Kyrgyz Republic and neighboring the President Karimov of Uzbekistan, neighboring country, advocate to seek look east policy in Central Asia, and following the success of such policy pursued by the Prime Minister Mahathir of Malaysia, Malaysia. As you know, this policy refers to the economic development policy taken in Japan, Korean, and other East Asian countries. Specifically, this look for the fostering the industry and the market under the leadership of government and central banks, as well as import substitution and export promotion. They also look for the introduction of a fund itself from Japan. Japan has contributed to the Kyrgyz economy by transferring the management know-how of the Japanese enterprise, Japanese company, through the information and educational activity of the Japan Kyrgyz Center, and also by coming and going of various economic delegations and economists with special expertise. But unfortunately, the private direct investment is not large yet, reflecting the Japanese economic difficulty of recent years, although the ODA to Kyrgyz is among the top class in the world, as I said before. In this regard, I strongly hope for the early recovery of the Japanese economic activity.
Dr. Tanaka, you were the first head of the Japan Center in Central Asia. And what was your approach in promoting Kyrgyz people's understanding of Japan?
So, the purpose of Japan Center, to put in short, is to promote mutual understanding between Japanese people and Kyrgyz people. Activities that were initially emphasized were as follows. First, is to explain to the people of Kyrgyz the characteristics of the Japanese management know-how that enabled the high economic growth after the Second World War, and illustrate the procedure to foster the market-oriented economy. And secondly, the center provides a Japanese language course, which are essential to understand the Japanese economy and culture. From these courses, the third point, from these courses, the center selects several students with high grades and assists them to study more in Japan for a short period. I promoted these activities while I headed the center. Actually, as we did not have the Japanese embassy in Kyrgyz, I was very busy. Besides this activity, in participating in official meetings and events held by the Kyrgyz government, and communicating with other countries' embassies, as well as with the Japanese government to Tokyo, and in taking care of the Japanese residents in Kyrgyz. But after I left the center, those governmental liaison works having been much decreased, as the Japanese ambassador in Kazakhstan began to concurrently serve as an ambassador in Kyrgyzstan. Anyway, at every opportunity and activities, I made my best effort. One is to expand the opportunity where the people of Kyrgyzstan and Japan get contacts with each other. And two is to explain that the economic development lines taken by Japan after the Second World War is very applicable to the present Central Asian countries as well. Number three, to enrich the collection of books introducing Japanese culture, society, and economy. And number four is to serve to bridge the official interchange and private one between the two countries. And an activity of Japan Center in Kyrgyz have been highly evaluated. It's very happy. And there are now concrete initiatives to set up a Japan Center in Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan upon the request of the respective government. It's very honorable.
Well, Dr. Tanaka, this is the final day of our summer special series entitled Central Asia Today. And throughout this week, we've taken a look at various issues concerning the 5 Central Asian countries. And now, to wrap up the series, I'd like to ask you to give us your general views on the area. Let's suppose you have a bird view and look at the area as a whole. What problems do you see? What chances lie there? And what expectations do you think the area has toward Japan?
In thinking about the Central Asia as a whole, let me broaden our horizon to including the Caucasian countries, 3 countries. This area occupy in total 11 times as large area as Japan. And diplomatically, since Japan attaches greater importance to the United Nations in its foreign policy, so diplomatically, it would be essential to take a balanced approach to these smaller CIS countries as well, not only to the big countries like Russia and China. And although these countries are trying to make an effort to democratize their political system and liberalize their economy to transit to a market economy, the pace of the process varies among the countries, and Islam religion is dividing and spreading up towards the northern countries due to the relaxation of religious policy of CIS countries. And presently, these countries face 2 tasks. One is a transition to a market economy out of a central planning economy. The second one is to take off from developing the economy. In general, the independence from the former Soviet Union in 1991 was a positive factor politically and nationalistically. But economically, it was a negative factor since it burdened independence. Independence burdened each country to form its own economic area. Real GDP declined in every CIS country after independence, sometimes even half of them. Nowadays, it is only Uzbekistan that recovered the real GDP level to that of pre-independence. The transition to a market economy has been proceeding at a varied speed, depending on each country's initial conditions, such as the situation of existing industries, endowment of natural resources, and human capital, the experience of market economies, and the level of foreign investment, and so on. And it is important, however, to establish solid domestic economy, and then commit to the international market step by step. On the financial front, rapid fostering the indirect financial market should be given higher priority than the nurturing the overall direct financial market. In this sense, it would be necessary to review the the across the border introduction of global standards in a short period, which is advised by the IM, sometimes advised, and other international organizations. And it is also important to learn from the lesson of the East Asian currency crisis. And lastly, let me touch upon what Japan should and can do to this area. And judging from its geographic location, Japan is not in a position to exert its political and military influence on the Central Asia and the Caucasian area. And instead, Japan's relation with these countries will naturally be centered in the economic assistance, trade, and investment, direct investment on the one hand, and also cultural exchange on the other hand. In other words, Japan should exist as an integrated system power, which contributed to the transition to a market economy and the democratization, and through these relationships. And historically speaking, this can be said to be a feedback of culture in the form of industrial technology and manufactured products to these countries.
Like electrical appliances or cars, or?
Yeah. And these countries are located along the Silk Road, especially in the north of Tian Shan Mountains. And this area delivered, their culture as far as to Japan more than 1,000 years ago. We introduced the culture from that area. Right. At present, there are several economic development projects which are commonly weighted with strong expectation by the country in Central Asia and the Caucasian area. Specifically, there are in total 6 I can point out. One is the establishment of airline routes, direct airline route, or the Trans-Eurasian Road and Railway, and the communication networks. And the second one is strengthening and nurturing of small and medium-sized companies, as I already told you, in the food processing, textile, and electronic industry. Number 3 is the development of mineral and energy resources, natural resources. Number 4 is the development of touring routes around the beautiful Tian Shan and the Caucasian Mountains with ancient and medieval remains. And number 5, anti-pollution projects on the Aral Sea and the International River and other environmental projects. And number 6 is nurturing human capital necessary to market economy and who has overcome the communistic nepotism. This is very important. And Japan is required to positively work on these projects and examining and effectively apportioning them into ODA applicable ones and private investment projects. It is also important to dispatch an increased number of talented persons who stay long term, not short term, but long term, and assist the project to fulfill the project on site. And Japan should also play a role to intermediate these projects to the international organization. And for economic assistance to Central Asia and the Caucasian area, in total 8 countries, is actually divided into 4 countries already suitable for development of energy resources, and the other 4 countries with less energy resources. While in the former countries, already a large amount of money of international oil capital is flowing in already. But there is a scarce flow of capital into the latter 4 countries.
So there's already a difference between the poor and the rich.
Yes. There is not a small risk that these latter countries appeal to the extreme racism or Islamic fundamentalism, I'm afraid. Because the differential of capital inflow tended to leads the differential of living standard itself, living level. And future ODA from Japan is expected to play a role of balancer, not to widen such differential. The Central Asia and the Caucasus can be a buffer zone against such big countries as Russia, China, Iran, and Turkey. And therefore, the political and economic stability of this area will be a big factor to the peace of the Eurasian continent itself in general. From this viewpoint, it is strongly expected that the Japanese economy will soon start to recover its bigger and increase its assistance, direct investment, and trade to this important area of the world, I hope.